What's up, guys? Welcome back to this week's episode of the Healing Unfiltered podcast. I have a nice little quick check in session for you guys today. We are going to talk about three main questions you can ask yourself when you're feeling overwhelmed to not only check in and really get to know yourself and how you process feeling overwhelmed, but to help make it maybe more feasible to conquer. How do we move forward versus getting stuck in that overwhelm? So I've used some of these questions myself in moments of overwhelm when life gets chaotic or if I have a busy schedule that week. Especially the last one, I think is really, really helpful, and it kind of puts things into perspective and makes things feel a little more doable, manageable, almost like gives us more control. So I first want to talk about, I guess, just normalize overwhelm. A lot of times I think that we get hit with overwhelm and we're like, fuck, what am I doing wrong? Or what am I not doing enough of? Or something internally gets put on us. We experience some sort of internalized shame. And let me just remind you guys that overwhelm is just a feeling. It is just a moment. It is literally a neurological response to some sort of stimuli in your environment that says, ooh, this is a lot. This is a lot going on. And I think the thing that we do unintentionally, but I think the thing that kind of causes us even more distress is we associate overwhelm with very concrete things. So overwhelm is a very emotional experience, right? It is an emotion, but then we correlate it with productivity or efficiency. We all of a sudden make it practical. And I want you to pause for a second and remember the fact that overwhelm is an emotion. It does not run your life. It does not have anything to do with how productive you are or how productive you should be. It is just an emotional response. So when we feel this feeling, I want you guys first, before we get into the reflection questions, recognize it in yourself. Okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. Okay, let's just identify that first and separate it from the productivity or whatever it is that you have going on, because too often it gets too tied into that. We don't pause. We might say oh my gosh, I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now, but then we keep going. It's okay, good to know, but then let me just continue on with exactly what I'm doing. So we need to first recognize that it's extremely normal to feel overwhelmed. And it's not just when we have a lot going on logistically. You can have one thing going on logistically in your life, but let's say you didn't get enough sleep, you haven't eaten, maybe you are feeling more emotional than normal that day, week, month, maybe you're having relationship stress, or maybe you've just experienced a loss, maybe you have this internal stimuli going on that makes the one thing externally feel like too much. It's not a quantity thing. There isn't a limit that you hit where all of a sudden being overwhelmed is validated. If you're overwhelmed, you're overwhelmed. It's your body's way of letting you know that something is too much right now. And it could be one thing or it could be 20 things. But I think society's expectation of what feeling overwhelmed should be, or the limit that we need to get to be able to rightfully experience overwhelm, that's I've talked about hustle culture before and how society just wants us to go, 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 and expects us to be these machines that can crank out productivity and manage all these relationships and take care of ourselves and be healthy. And this is a part of that I think we forget that overwhelm is a signal to us. And instead of it being a signal to us to slow down, we internalize it as a signal of fuck, why can't I handle this? I should be able to handle more. No, take a second, take a breather, recognize that you're feeling overwhelmed, and then get back to it. And that's where these questions I think will help, because by no means is this me saying you feel overwhelmed. Well, let's just give up and avoid and not be productive and rot. Of course, every now and then when you're feeling overwhelmed, a day to rot is very, very necessary. But I think we internalize this I have to go at the same pace with the same amount of gusto. And it's no, we don't have to. We can reset. We can allow ourselves a moment to reset and then figure out how we want to proceed. So, with that being said, we're going to dive into question one. So, the first thing that's going to be necessary before you can really answer all these questions effectively is you got to take an inventory of what's going on. You have to, like I said, first identify that you're feeling overwhelmed and then identify the cause of it. Sometimes I think we avoid identifying the cause of it because, like I said a moment ago, we feel like the cause isn't big enough, or we kind of minimize what we're going through or whatever it is that we're feeling overwhelmed. It's well, I'm overwhelmed by my job. I've had my job for 10 years. I should be used to it by now. why am I feeling overwhelmed? Or I'm overwhelmed by my family. Okay, well, they're my family. I love them. I love to be around them. Everything else in life is great right now. I shouldn't be overwhelmed by people that I love. Like we just kind of minimize and shove it down. So we want to look at this very concretely. So we want to say, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Let's just list out all the things I have going on right now. Maybe I have a cold. Maybe, like I said, I'm hungry. I didn't eat lunch. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep. Maybe I have 8,000 things on my to do list. Maybe I have so much to do, or even three things on my to do list, and only 30 minutes until I have to pick my kids up from school. We just have to list it all out and be aware of what it actually is that is leading to overwhelm. And then the first question that I want you to ask yourself once you have this list of all the things that are contributing to your overwhelm, what is actually mine to carry? Okay, this question needs to be looked at very literally. Not what do I feel like is mine, not what is somebody else's expectation of what is mine. What is actually mine to carry? When I say we're going to look at it literally, I'm saying like what is actually ours in the sense of nobody else can do that. It is something I have to do versus is it something I can put down for that moment, for forever? That's not important right now, but in the moment that you're feeling overwhelmed, is it something that you actually have to do because you're the only one who can do it? Number one. And number two, is it a huge priority that you have to do right now? If the answer to those questions are, somebody else could do it, okay, or there's other priorities that can wait, then we're going to put it down if you're feeling overwhelmed. It's okay to put things down. And I mean physically or metaphorically. And a lot of cases in overwhelm, in moments of overwhelm, it is metaphorically because the things that add to our overwhelm are the expectations from other people, the fear of disappointing somebody. What's going to happen if I don't do the thing that somebody else is expecting me to do? 9 times out of 10, when we list out all the things that we have to do that are leading to us feel overwhelmed, we can pretty easily prioritize what needs to be done now versus what doesn't. The issue that we run into is, "Ugh, but if I don't do this thing, if I do put XYZ thing down because it's not a priority to me, who am I letting down? Who's going to be disappointed by me making that choice or setting that boundary?" This is the hard part. And I think when we look at it that way, we look at what causes overwhelm. I would argue to say it's not the millions of things on your to-do list. It might feel that way because that's a lot, but the thing that's actually causing the overwhelm is the inability to recognize what is actually important to do in this moment, what can wait, and what is actually yours that you have to carry right now versus an expectation of somebody else. Because if we can break it down very literally, very concretely, we'll find that there's a lot of things that can probably wait, even if it's waiting till tomorrow. Like, okay, we push it off a day. Maybe that's what makes all the difference in feeling overwhelmed. Or maybe it's something we say, hey, you know what? I don't have energy for this right now. I was so guilty of this over the summer. I actually shouldn't say guilty. I'm going to correct myself because we are not putting guilt or shame on us by setting a boundary. This summer, I had probably a list of 3 to 5 people that I wanted to get together with and grab coffee and catch up. People from grad school, people from my previous job, and friends that I wanted to like check in or they had questions or whatever, wanted to connect with. And I've disclosed on the podcast before that the summer months were crazy for our family. We had a lot of personal stuff going on. And I hit this moment of like, I'm really sorry, guys, but I don't have an extra hour or two to grab coffee. I do logistically. I could squeeze it into my calendar and make it work, but at the expense of what? My overwhelm, my well being, my stress levels, because that extra hour or two, even if it wasn't used being quote unquote productive in the sense of like my to do list or getting work done or seeing clients or whatever, it was being poured back into me. And it's what allowed me to maintain my sanity in a really hard time of life. And I have a feeling a few of those people on that list might have been disappointed. And the thing is, they understand because they knew what was going on in my life. I guess the point is, we might disappoint people if we put ourselves first in sometimes, but the people who are meant to be in your life will understand. Disappointment does not mean you did anything wrong. This is another thing. I'm kind of going off on another tangent here. This could be a whole nother episode, but we're so afraid of disappointing people because somewhere along the lines, we associated someone being disappointed in us with them being angry at us or them not liking us anymore, or them thinking we're not good enough. It's like overwhelm is an emotion for you. Disappointment is an emotion for somebody else. So, okay, of course they're disappointed. That's like saying like, yeah, I really wanted to go golfing today, but it's raining. Oh, man, I'm disappointed. Like I'm bummed. I really wanted to do that. Okay, same thing. Like my friends who I said, hey guys, I can't squeeze it in right now. Oh, bummed. I really wanted to see you. Yeah, me too. I'm also disappointed. Doesn't mean they hate me. Doesn't mean they're mad at me even. It just means like, oh shoot, I really was looking forward to seeing you. But I get it. You got to put yourself first. So that's another thing that we need to look at when it comes to not only prioritizing, but like challenging this fear of other people's expectations or letting them down. They're allowed to be disappointed. Someone being disappointed is not inherently a like threatening thing to your relationship or your attachment. Maybe in some relationships that is the case, but that says more about the health of the relationship than the boundary you're setting or the feeling of disappointment in general. So again, I could go on another tangent about that, and maybe I will next week. But first, we want to recognize what is mine to carry, and we need to look at what is actually causing the overwhelm. Is it the fear of letting somebody down? Is it the expectations that are placed on us by others or even ourselves or society? We really have to pinpoint, though, and prioritize what is actually worth my time and energy right now. What has to be done? What do I want to get done? And what can wait? Okay, question number 2. What do I need right now? So we're kind of looking at both sides. So we are looking at the side of logistics. Okay. Then we're going to put that down for a second. We're going to say, okay, I've identified my to do list. I've identified the priorities of like what really needs to be done, what is actually mine. And then we're going to look at what do I need? What is my body craving? What is my mind craving? What will make me feel better? Like what will make me feel productive? We just need to look at like, instead of what does everybody else need and what does my to do list need? What do I need? Do I need a freaking deep breath? Do I need to step outside and feel the fresh air? Do I need to eat some food, right? If I feel like I've skipped over all those necessities for myself, do I need to look at my priorities and say, okay, if I actually get number 1 and 2 done, even if that leaves 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 undone, maybe that will make me feel better. Those are the priorities that we have. We need to look at it one step of a time. We need to look at it one step at a time. When we're feeling overwhelmed, we're looking at the whole mountain. We're looking at everything all at once. And I have had this happen so many times, personally and in sessions with clients, where we'll sit down and we'll say, I feel so overwhelmed. And I'll be like, okay, let's brain dump. Let's brain dump everything on your brain that is making you feel overwhelmed. And a lot of times people are like, oh my God, it's going to be a list of like 20,000 things. And we get in, it's like a list of 4. And I do not say that to minimize at all, because again, this is not a quantity issue. But the point is, when it's all just stuck up in our brain, yeah, it feels overwhelming because it's all going to get tangled. It's all going to bounce around. It's all going to be everywhere and get all messy. But when we put it all out and everything has a place, it's like, oh, that's way more manageable than I thought. Same thing with this. When we look at what do I need right now, maybe what we need is just to get our brain organized. Maybe we need a new system for our to-do list instead of just adding on and on and on to the same to-do list. But we need to shift our perspective. Instead of looking at the whole mountain, we need to look at it one step at a time. And we really need to pay attention to those human nature needs: food, rest, water, connection, boundaries, and movement. Okay, maybe my body is craving a 5-minute yoga session or stretching. Maybe my body is craving a walk. Maybe my body is craving lifting or boxing or doing some type of movement. A lot of time in the middle of the workday, I'm going to throw my husband under the bus. He won't care. He gets really overwhelmed with work, and it's a beautiful day outside. And he's like, all right, at the beginning of the day, he's like, I'm going to go outside, take a walk today. That'll be really good for me. I get in these moments where I crave it. Like I just need to get outside, move my body, whatever. Midday comes. I say, oh, did you get out for your walk yet? No, I got too much to do. I got too much to do. We live on a block that probably takes about 5 minutes to walk one circle around. I yell at him all the time because I'm like, whatever you're doing, you can pause for a second and walk around the block instead of scrolling on your phone for that 5 minutes. And I think that this is one of the things, the lessons that every single human being needs to be reminded of, is you do have 5 minutes. This goes back to when we prioritize things or this fear of letting somebody down. What's the worst that could happen if you're 5 minutes later to working on a project? If you have a meeting to get to, if you're like me, a therapist, and you have clients or you have scheduled oriented things, I'm not saying show up 5 minutes late to your meetings, or we have to be intentional about when we take this time, but you do have 5 minutes to step away from your desk and go give your body, your brain, your mental health, your spirit, whatever it is, something you need. So when I say check in with what we need, That's partially being aware of like, okay, we actually need to know what we need to do on our to-do list or what's overwhelming us. But we also need to know, what do we need as a human being living in this world? Because a lot of times those are the things that will help us manage the overwhelm. It's getting out for a walk, drinking some water, taking some deep breaths. If you're religious, sitting down, saying a prayer. If you're spiritual, sitting down and doing a quick meditation or getting in touch with yourself. Something that will ground you and get you back to your body, because overwhelm gets us away from our body. Overwhelm gets our nervous system all up in a tizzy and our fight or flight reactions kind of going, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. What am I supposed to do with this? We need to bring it back down. So, what do you need in that moment? And then the third question, which I teased a little bit at the beginning, that is my favorite question to ask myself when I'm feeling overwhelmed. What would it look like if it were simple? And honestly, that sounds easier said than done when you're in a state of overwhelm. Trust me, if your brain is running a mile a minute and you are going through all of the things that you have going on, you're feeling really overwhelmed, and I asked you, well, what would it look like if it were simple? You'd look at me and go, okay, if it were simple, I would just do it. I wouldn't feel this way. This is why steps 1 and 2 are so important, because we brain dump everything we have, we prioritize it, we check in with ourselves. What do I actually need? And then we can go back to simplifying the to-do list. Then we can get to a point of saying like, okay, I have these 3 things on my to-do list. What would it look like if it were simple? The other thing I need you to remember with this is, by asking that question, what would it look like if it were simple? That doesn't mean, okay, well, then I'm going to go make that happen. It's a perspective challenge. It's forcing your brain to take something that seemed so overwhelming, so over the top, so impossible, and imagining what it would look like if it were simple. Just kind of tapping into that creative brain of like, you know what? Let's fantasize a little bit. Let's take this crazy to-do list and fantasize about what it would look like if it were simple. And the thing that happens with that is it starts to open our brain to the possibility of actually making it feel more simple. So, what we need to remember is that overwhelm is over complexity, over complicated. It is taking things and tangling them. Okay. Simplicity comes from clarity. Simplicity does not come from less. This is not a quantity issue. Overwhelm is not a quantity issue. Are you more likely to be overwhelmed if you have more things? Yes. Overwhelm is an emotional issue. It is a lack of boundaries issue. It is a lack of self-awareness issue. If we want to reach simplicity when we are feeling overwhelmed, we need to first reach clarity. Clarity comes from knowing what's on our to-do list, not making our to-do list less. Eventually, yes, we would like to get to the point of having our to-do list be less. But what I want you to remember also is, when it comes to a lot of things on our to-do list, we're thinking of stress then, right? We oftentimes forget that there is a healthy stress. We think of stress like, oh, I'm so stressed out. I have so much going on. I'm so overwhelmed. That is the side of stress that we are used to. There is a healthy level of stress in our emotional experiences. That healthy level of stress is what helps us get things done. That healthy level of stress is what helps athletes be successful. Because, yeah, playing a sport is probably really fun for them. They really, really like it. But it's the stress that pushes them towards, I want to win this game. That's a healthy level of stress. Your to-do list, when you like to check things off the to-do list, you get a little dopamine hit from that. That's a healthy level of stress pushing you to, ooh, I'm going to conquer this challenge. So we need to start to reframe that as well and get to a point where we can recognize what is healthy stress versus unhealthy stress. Majority of us live in a state of unhealthy stress, and that is where the overwhelm comes in. So I really want you guys to take things back to the smallest possible step and then go from there. I think sometimes we bite off more than we can chew because we think it's a big problem. I got to tackle the big problem. If you take the first step and it's a really small step, eventually the problem's still going to get solved. It might take a little bit longer, but you're probably going to be more efficient and you're probably going to be a little less overwhelmed and more in that category of healthy stress versus unhealthy stress. So we need to take it down, strip it back to the simplest form that it can possibly be in, and then make our moves. We try to make our moves from this state of heightened fight or flight reactivity, and we're able to function in that state because society has conditioned us really well to be able to function with overactive nervous systems, but that's not how you were meant to be. You were not meant to function with an overactive nervous system. And I think the thing that frustrates me is that because we've been conditioned this way, we're meant to think that we're only productive by functioning from an overactive nervous system. I promise you, you can be just as freaking productive with a balanced and healthy nervous system as you are with an overactive one. Okay, so quick recap of these three questions. Number one, what is actually mine to carry? Let's brain dump everything. Let's organize. Let's prioritize. Let's get an actual picture of what it is that I actually need to do, while also being aware of what can I put down. Can I put down somebody else's expectations of me? Can I put down that fear of disappointing others, this fear of failure, whatever it is? Anything extra, we're putting it down. Number two, what do I need right now? Yes, in terms of my concrete to-do list, but more importantly, what do I as a human being need right now? Does it have anything to do with my to-do list? If not, probably even better, because those are the things that are going to ground us and regulate our nervous system. And then number three, what would this look like if it were simple? Because most likely the answer to your problem is starting with the most simple first step. Don't overcomplicate it. And gets us nowhere but overwhelmed. We can function from a state of overcomplication, and we can work our asses off and get to the finish line and accomplish what we need to finish. And then the feeling that we feel at the end is relief. So the type of accomplishment we feel is relief. Oh, thank God that is over with. I'm done with that work day. I'm done with that project. Thank God that is done. Okay. Until the next time that you have a next workday or a next project. Okay, so we can function from overcomplication and end up in a state of relief, which, yes, feels good. Or we can function from a state of simplicity and end with a feeling of accomplishment. If we function from simplicity, we get to the end and we think, oh, hell yeah, I conquered that. I feel so proud of myself. Look at how overwhelmed I was. Look at how well I organized it. And I feel so accomplished for checking that off my to-do list. Then the next time that workday or that project pops up again, sweet, I got this. Now we're functioning from a place of confidence versus the next time it happens when we're functioning from overcomplication. We are already like, oh, here we go again. Fuck, our nervous system gets jacked up before we even started. So I think that's a huge takeaway to look at this is life is going to repeat itself. We are going to have the same challenges over and over and again, just with a different font. And so how do we want to approach those? Because every challenge you handle in this moment is prepping you for the challenge you have to handle in the next. And in this moment, if I'm functioning from fight or flight, and I'm feeling overwhelmed and I just want to get it over with so that I have relief, well, guess how you're going to feel the next time you have to face it. Versus simplicity, it's that growth versus fixed mindset. If we're functioning from simplicity, great, I'm going to figure out what I have to do. I'm going to delegate when I need to. I'm going to be in tune with myself, and I'm going to feel accomplished as hell when I'm done with that task. And then the next time I'll be confident in myself and in being able to do that again in the future. So I hope that was helpful. Another nice, quick little check-in for you guys with some concrete things, concrete reflection along the way. If you have any questions, please reach out. You can follow me on Instagram at Erin Burns Wellness. And I love to hear from you guys. So leave a rating or a review wherever you listen to your podcast. On Spotify, please leave a comment on this episode if you've listened and you enjoyed it or if something stood out to you. And yeah, I hope it was helpful. I will see you guys again next week. All right, bye.